What's up there, gearheads? It's me, Zach, doing another review. I'm going to be doing another review on the Spyderco Salt 1 knife that I actually own. I did do another review on it, but it wasn't very good, and so I'm kind of redoing this one so that way it's a lot better. I feel like this particular review is going to go a lot better than the first one because I have more statistics and I can better explain myself on the actual metal and its properties. So the actual knife itself is actually really cool. It is obviously by the company Spyderco. It is designed for wet environments or use in salt water or high salt content water, either for like fishing or wet weather environments, and different things of that sort. I have found that this knife works a lot better for me in both of those roles, for fishing, wet weather environments, but also for camping. It's a great camping knife. I really do love this knife a lot, and it's one of my preferred knives that I take with me camping when I go. Just some overall specifications. The actual overall length of this knife is 7 inches. The blade length is 3 inches with a cutting surface of actually 2.6 inches. The blade thickness is 0.9, so it's relatively thick blade. It is H1 steel. It is a modified sheepfoot blade style, but mine is a little different than that. Obviously, I did a modification on mine, and I made it sharper. I just used a file, and I filed it down very carefully and very slowly. I filed it down and got it to the blade shape that I wanted it, which is a modified version of what Spyderco did. Obviously, a lot of guys out there are probably cringing, but I feel like this works a lot better for me in the environments and things that I use this knife for than the sheep's foot design that came with it. The actual blade grind itself is, I guess, considered a hollow grind. It is a satin finish on this blade, and the edge type is going to be plain. They do sell serrated models of this particular style, this particular knife, and they sell all kinds of blade shapes too, which is kind of nice. And so Spyderco has really thought out their product really well, and put a lot of thought into different usages of actual blade shapes. The actual handle length is 4 inches, and it's very generously proportioned. I have large hands, and they fit my hands very well. So I can actually fit all 4 of my fingers around it, and then there's actually room, a little bit at the bottom. So that's kind of good. The actual handle material is made out of FRN, so it is like an FRN with a volcano texture on there, I think is what they call it, or it's the old school Spidey texture. There's Spyderco's nice little logo right there, little Spyderco, and it has Salt 1 on the very bottom, so it's kind of nice. Let's see, the actual weight, and I have yellow scales. I know they come with black scales too. And there are different combos of black with black, or black with satin, yellow with satin. So it's kind of nice. There's different combos there that you can actually get and purchase. The actual weight of the entire knife together is actually only 2 ounces, which is, there's really nothing there, and it's quite amazing how lightweight this knife really is under those circumstances. Another thing that's kind of nice is the fact that the actual pocket clip here is it's reversible, so you can wear it on the right or left hand side, but it's tip up only, so you cannot put it up here. There is no tip down carry for this knife. Not bad, because I don't really mind the carry method and what's on here, so that's kind of nice. It does have a very nice thumb hole for opening, and I think this is a 14mm hole that they've actually tapped into the actual H1 itself. and is very well rounded, and the whole fit and finish of the entire blade is very nice. And it is a lever action, a lever or a lever lock. I'm sorry, or a lock back design, and this is the David Boyle dent back here, the famous Spyderco dent that they have in all of their knives for lockbacks, and it functions quite well and is very easy to maneuver and do and action very quickly. You know, you can do the Spidey drop with it and everything, which is really nice. I would say that this is a nice everyday carry knife, and general purpose knife and fishing knife. Just the all around usage of this knife, it really goes in the everyday environment, any environment, anywhere, for any task. You could really use this knife and really push the boundaries of this knife. There are very few things I would not do with this knife, and I will kind of state those as we go on. But the main usage of this knife in my experience has been for a camp knife or for a nice everyday carry knife, and fishing knife. So I've been really pushing it into those three categories quite substantially, and it has excelled extremely well at that. And I really do love this knife a lot. It has a lot to offer. It's a cool looking blade too. Very well done, very well cleaned and taken care of. And they paid a lot of attention to the actual knife itself when they were making it. It looks a lot like the Delica series that Spyderco makes. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you can go look that up. Or if you already own one, really great knife to have in your system. Obviously the VG10 that comes on the Delica series is a lot better in cutting edge, but this suits me just fine. I will talk a little bit about the steel real quick. It is H1 steel, and it is made by the Moito company out of Siki City, Japan. And the blade steel itself is called H1 steel, and what it is a nitrogen-based steel, and which is kind of cool. And that means that they basically took the carbon content. They took the carbon content within the actual blade itself. Sorry, excuse me. 1 second. Sorry. So they actually took the actual blade itself, they actually took the metal itself, and instead of infusing it with carbon, they infused it with nitrogen. And what they did was it's called precipitation. It's called precipitation hardened steel, or age hardened steel. And what they do is they learned how to inject liquid nitrogen into the molten hot iron or molten hot liquid metal, and they turned it into essentially a somewhat carbon-free blade steel. And when there's no carbons for the actual rust molecules or the ferric oxides to bind to, you basically hinder the entire blade rust free. And up until a few years ago, this didn't exist. This was a mythical blade steel that didn't exist until the really intelligent and smart guys over at the Moito company, really figured it out and started pushing the products. And so many people have started using this blade steel, especially Spyderco. I think Kershaw, or maybe it was, I'm not sure who really pioneered the way with the completely rust-free steels in knives, but somebody did it first, and Spyderco and so many other companies were soon to follow, or will be soon to follow, and it's been absolutely fantastic. I would say that the blade quality, or the blade finish, or the blade durability is closely related to 440A stainless steel. That 440A has a decent edge retention quality, and eventually wears away, and you have to maintain the blade. But this particular blade, I've had quite promise with actually You know, keeping it sharp and it doing a lot of different tasks and a lot of different jobs. And I've really pushed the knife. I've done a lot of cutting with it, power cuts. I've done very light batoning with this actual knife, and a lot of camp chores, cutting food and cutting rope, and you know, doing everyday tasks, boxes, opening up mail packages. You know, you name it. It is done. Literally, this knife is done it and cut it all, and I have had no problems with the actual product itself, and I really do love the whole knife. And the steel is just absolutely incredible. I know a lot of people have tried to take these actual blades and they submerge them in different environments and really try to destroy the blades to see how far they can push the knife. And it seems as if the knife itself is very, very tough and very, very rigid. I've had no rust show up on this knife since I've had it. And I've had no problems with rust forming anywhere else on any of the other metal components, even underneath the rivets. I check every now and then to make sure, and that's kind of nice. I am sure that the actual clip itself right here, I think it's titanium. I think it might be a titanium steel or a titanium clip. That has just been, it has some sort of nice coating over it. The coating does wear away, and that doesn't bother me because it kind of gives it a cool look, a more used look. And like I said before, it's got the nice Spidey symbol. It is reversible on the other side. You can put it on the other side, and it's got a very decent lanyard hole in there. And I always recommend having a lanyard on any object that you're going to take out with you, especially if you're going to do camping. It's always good to have that precautionary measure when you're cutting. Yeah, it's a really great knife. The texturing on the actual FRN handles is really good. I mean, it's decent. It doesn't have a whole lot of grip. I mean, it does grab the actual skin itself. But the reason why it's not overly aggressive is because you don't really want this to be super aggressive on your hands when it's wet, or when your hands are wet. Because the more your hands are moist, they're more sensitive. And so if you had super aggressive texturing on there, you would shred your hands up, and it would just ruin your hands, and you'd end up really hating yourself for having uh, uh, a super textured blade. So yeah, the jimping is quite nice too. There's nice jimping on the very back of the spine of the blade. I do kind of wish though, there's kind of this awkward part right here. I know the Delica series also has it. I believe they have it too. It's got this awkwardness right here. I really wish they would have done something with this right here. Either curve this so you could actually slip a finger up onto it and do close tasks. That's what I end up doing if I have to use this knife. I usually end up slipping my hand up on it to do real fine work. And, you know, obviously I back it up to do more deeper work. But I kind of wish they did something with that FRN handle. I feel like it's just kind of hanging out. I guess if you were really inclined, you could actually grind that down. But I would worry that it would hinder the actual locking mechanism or the pin itself. I don't want it. You know, I don't want to ruin it and lose the stability and the control of the actual pin by relieving it of material that it needs to actually hold the blade in. Would it be kind of nice though? Absolutely. I think they should do it. You know, or think about it. You know. Let's see. I had other things I was going to say about this. Obviously, there are better steels out there that hold a better blade edge. I've had no problems with my blade edge. I've used it quite a bit and haven't really found any issues with sharpening it either. It sharpens up pretty easy, and it takes a really nice buff to it, a buff finish if you like buffing your knives. And I generally like to run a little bit of a buff right along the edge to keep it nice and razor sharp. And then I run it up and down different mechanisms, or like stropping it and to keep it razor sharp. And there are different methods out there, and everybody does their sharpening a little differently. And I really do generally think that this is an easy knife to maintain. especially even in the wilderness, I think it would be very easy to maintain, even though it does dole out on you quite relatively fast after, generous amounts of use. It's not so bad that you couldn't keep it up all the time. Um, let's see. I was going to say something about, we're talking about the blade steels. Okay, obviously, yeah, there are better blade steels out there. There's S30V, VG10, and all those blades have different, properties within them that make them a lot better than the H1 steel. But I feel as if the H1 steel will last forever. You could drop this knife in the water and you can then literally come back to it in a couple of years and it would probably be just fine. You'd probably find it in the same condition that you left it. Eventually, all things rust, I think, eventually over time, and I'm not sure what, the end life would be for this actual blade, but I assume that from its non-rusting capabilities that it would stay around for forever, which is really nice. These do come in many colors. I think I said that at the very beginning of the film. They come with black handles, and that's kind of nice. If you don't like the bright orange or bright yellow handles, I got bright yellow because in my line of work, whenever I put down my knife or whatever, sometimes I forget. Sometimes it either falls out of my pocket or it is nighttime and I need to get my knife out and use it. I generally need to know exactly where my knife is. That way I, A, don't cut myself, and B, always know where my cutting instruments are so I can use them. And that's just a nice feature for me, and it does really nice in low light visibility. You get that really bright yellow. It does help you spot it very easily. And you don't have to tie any magical cords or anything onto it to keep it from, keep yourself from losing it. And that was my intended purpose. And I know that in the diving world, it's nice to have something that's bright yellow because in low light visibilities, when you're deep underneath the water, it helps make your knife very visible to use, which is nice. And this knife I would highly recommend for divers as a backup system for their diving kit. It's a fantastic blade. The other colors that they sell, though, I would recommend more to divers, just because there's the Pacific Salt one, or Pacific Salt, and that knife actually comes with black on black, and it's a little bit bigger. I think it's got a bigger blade on it, and it's I think it's like 8 inches, so it's like an inch longer than this. It's got a little bit more blade, and that knife is a little bit better. Seeing as how if you're a diver and you're going into the water, you want a black on black blade because you don't want anything shiny on you. Just because if there are a lot of predator fish out there that if they see anything shiny, they may think that it is a game fish and try to go after anything that's shiny, and you'll end up with getting a chunk bitten out of you. And that's happened to many people in the diving community. It's a hard lesson learned over time that you don't want to have anything shiny on you when you go into the water, just because a lot of the times fish really will try to nibble at you or nibble at the object that is shiny, and you don't want that. So I would really highly recommend the black with black. Or if you can find it, you can get yellow with a black handle and not shiny components. Or just tuck this away in a pocket so that way it can't be seen. But easily accessible in case you have to use it for an emergency purpose, to cut away ropes or anything if you get entangled. This would be a great system, though, really to have and just kind of use for everyday tasks. And it's a great boating knife. It does a lot of chores and a lot of gross chores that you can do. I've used this to gut fish. I've used it to cut cordage. I've used it to, to do light prying and light batoning with it, just to kind of have a feel and lots and lots and lots of cutting on wood and sharpening sticks and things and making, tent pegs and food prep. It's done absolutely a wonderful job. That's all I gotta say for now on this actual knife. I really highly recommend it. It's a great knife, great steel, made by a good company that knows what they're doing. Spyderco gets a 10 out of 10 always, and that's it. So that's all I got for today. You guys stay safe out there and don't cut yourselves.